Welcome to Contractor Cuts, where we cover the good, the bad, and the ugly of growing a successful contracting company.
Welcome to Contractor Cuts. My name is Clark Turner.
I'm Jared Flo.
Thank you for joining us again this week. So, this week we are talking about go back work. Yep. How it is so difficult to exit a job once we are all the way done. We're at 98, 99% done. I just want to get out of here. I want to get to the next one. I'm out of money on this job. I'm not making anything else.
Yeah, it's a sensitive and agitating topic sure.
I'm ready to leave. And this homeowner, I think, wants me to move in because they ask me to come back every freaking day.
Yeah.
Right? Like every single contractor, if you're listening to this and you've ran a job for at least 1 month, and you've been a contractor for that long, you have had this story happen to you.
And every company that I'm coaching, even our GC company, we have current clients that this is a struggle. It's just a constant, it's a part of our industry. This
is going to happen in our industry. Do you have a plan to exit quickly, and how do you approach each client? Because everyone's different. But there's three main ways that exits really happen.
Right.
And so what's your game plan around getting out of the job site, finishing well? And also, this is where your lasting impression happens, right? When I leave the job site, either the client's going to be like, that was awesome. I love working with that company. I'm going to use them again. Or I lost it in the last 5%.
I'll never talk to them again.
It's that last 5% that either makes or breaks your reputation with that client in that neighborhood, in that city, in that area. So how do we do it well? So we're going to walk you through it today.
Yeah. And the reality is that there is no if you do this, you'll never have this issue again.
Correct.
It's just not there.
Correct.
But what can I do to circumvent this and protect myself and protect the client as much as possible to keep this from being the scenario and the story of every single job every job is like this. How do you decrease
How do we go from 50% of the time I'm going back 3, 4, 5 times down to maybe 5 to 10% of the time I've got multiple go backs and I've really regulated expectations of my clients and really helped get my crew exited well.
Right.
So there's 3 different endings that you can have in doing this. So the first ending is what we all want, what we all hope for, what we rarely get.
The old Cinderella story.
Which is, hey, Jared, this is great. Good job. Today's the last day. Thanks so much for coming. I appreciate the renovation. I'll call you next time. And you just leave. That rarely happens.
It does.
And even then, there's still going to be some go back. There's going to be the normal punch list. Hey, what do we miss? I've been in here every single day for the last 3 months, and I know that I've forgotten stuff and stuff just looks normal because I've been here all the time.
Right.
Help me see it, right? And so you go through that with the client.
It just goes smoothly. It
goes
well.
smoothly as expected. The second way that jobs end is going to be kind of further down the hill in terms of negativity, where we had some issues. They probably don't trust you that much. They don't like something. You're kind of making them sorry, that is what it is, and I can't help.
They seem to be kind of unreasonable.
Yeah, and so they've tried to get me back out there 3, 4, 5 times. I start getting to a spot where I might not answer my phone for a couple days just to try to push them off, to let them know it's difficult to deal with us.
Right.
Not that I'm doing that, but that's often the story we hear. And then the third way is everything went south. I'm not going back to that house. There's nothing you can do to get me to show back up on that house because that client will never be happy.
Right.
And so we're going to talk through what you should do in each of these scenarios to exit quickly and with the best reputation you can, as well as being able to cover yourself legally and cover yourself in your public persona. So going into that, let's start with talking about why clients turn crazy. Because I feel like when you ask people, they're like, well, I feel like 30% of my clients are crazy people.
Are they all as crazy as you think they are?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, how many times have we heard, how do I weed out the crazies? Right. That's a lot of contractors are asking, how do we get rid of the crazies? And it's a trick question because you're not getting rid of the crazies. You're stopping people from turning from a normal person, a reasonable person, into someone who doesn't trust you. And when someone doesn't trust you, they appear crazy.
Well, and everybody has the potential to turn to that, right? Of feeling as the client, feeling taken advantage of,
Yeah.
feeling they need to protect themselves. And they're going to start reacting in a form that makes you as the contractor feel like they are unreasonable,
Yeah.
they're impossible to work with, they're never going to blah, 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 all of that different stuff. There are some out there that are absolutely just bonkers. And let's be honest, those, if you weed those out on the front, because you can kind of identify that on your estimate, they're like picking things apart and like striking through numbers and writing in their own numbers. And okay, I already know this person's going to be a nightmare, right? You don't choose to get into that relationship. Yeah. Right. You get in, okay, this person seems reasonable, blah, 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 blah. 99, 100% of the people that you choose to do work with on the front end, they're great. They were reasonable. They understood. They were, communicative, you know, all the stuff. So you're not starting off with crazy. So that means that most of the time at the end, they aren't just a crazy person. Something happened.
Yep.
To cause them to flip the switch.
Yeah.
And make them feel like they're nuts.
Yeah. I mean, a great example is we've all had a girlfriend or boyfriend that you had and you loved. It was great. This person's awesome. And then all of a sudden, she's acting so crazy. Like, what is she doing? Like, what? This is not the person I saw. Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And
she's asking me all the time where I'm at, what I'm doing, where am I going, constantly questioning me.
Forgot to text one night, and the next day she's absolutely lost it, gone bonkers on you.
Does it sound like a client?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the thing is, what happens in all of those any relationship that you're in, when you break trust once, it's like, okay, the other person says I gotta
guard myself.
I gotta start guarding myself. You break trust again, it's like, I knew it.
I have a track record.
Yep. And then anything happens after that, you're guilty until proven innocent. Yep. So it just like in any relationship, a relationship between a contractor and the homeowner, it can easily go sideways. And we've talked about this in 100 different podcasts about why we have a client engagement agreement to set those expectations, because we have a bar that we both expect, right? If that crazy girlfriend was like, hey, I need you to text me every single night before you go to bed.
Right.
Okay, I know that's your expectation, and let's make sure that we're on the same page with that. And so I know what I'm being judged by.
Yeah.
If you go into that relationship and they just start making up what they expect, then it's like, well, I didn't know that. And that's like, you seem crazy because I didn't set that expectation.
I'm being held to expectations that I didn't even know were there.
And so that's the same thing with homeowners. And I know we harp on our CEA all the time because you got to use it. You got to have one. This is how you do the front end. We do that because it works, because it eliminates this sort of thing majority of the time.
Well, and let's be honest. I mean, I could probably say the majority of what we go through in the CEA is for one singular purpose.
Yep.
To be able to complete the job, exit it,
and get out.
And get out. Right? There's a lot
keep our
of
profit, keep our reputation. That's
right.
the whole reason of the CEA.
And there's a lot of stuff in the CEA that is about during the progress of the renovations. Yep. This is how things are going to function. This is how you react and deal with our subs while they're on site. Here's how you're going to, all of that stuff. But there are some of the things that are uniquely created to help with the exit, that last 10%.
Exactly. The CEA is built to where you kind of walk through the whole process of the job. So we start by talking about the final revisions, when we have to have our trades walk the job site and how price can change before at that point. And then we talk about how day in and day out, how the job's going to run. And then we get to the ending of the CEA where we talk about how we finish the job.
Right.
And so within that, and in that conversation where I'm talking about when we leave the job, this is what we expect from you. This is what you expect from us. And we sit down with them. And a great thing that I like to do when I'm walking someone through a CEA is telling them about, hey, listen, when we're doing invoicing weekly, I invoice you every single week. And I know a lot of people don't invoice weekly. That's our policy, to be able to be a checkpoint for the client as we continue.
And specific things associated with that invoice that they can go look at.
I need 10 grand more.
Nebulous, I need $10,000 more, and it's not associated with anything getting completed. Yep. There are line items that we've clicked these as 50% or 100% that the client can go and look at and say, yes, I'm happy with that.
We say the sheetrock's 50% done, the flooring has been this, that, the demo's 100%, and so I'm going to invoice for these things that you, client, I want you to put your eyes on. And in the next 48 hours after receiving that, if you don't like something that I've invoiced, if you think that I'm not where I'm saying I'm at, it's your responsibility to raise your hand and say, Clark, listen, time out. you said you're done with paint. I don't think we're done.
Right.
And that's what the invoice is for. That's the whole reason we do weekly invoicing, cash flow, but also more importantly than even cash flow is I want to make sure that you have signed off that we're at least to where I think we are.
Yeah.
Let's keep our expectations on the same spot as to what I think is finished versus what you think is finished.
Well, and by nature of that, what it's doing is it's creating micro punch list or progressive punch list through the job that instead of getting to the end of the job where they've got, 150 pieces of blue tape somewhere, we've progressively gone through. And at this invoice, they were like, hey, there's 4 or 5 things that can we get those touched up? Yeah, no problem.
Great example. Hey, all the trim is painted. We haven't done the walls. We haven't put the floor in yet, but we're invoicing for 100% of the trim paint. Mm-hmm. You walk the house as the client and say, I don't like this line over here. And actually this wall over here, you missed totally.
Yeah.
You're right. Psh, psh, sprayed it, hit it, done in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It's all fixed.
Well, and
if I wait till the end and they have a punch list, I now have hardwoods laid. I now have walls painted. I now have to hand cut it in. It's now a 2-day process to tape off, plastic off everything and get it done. So it expedites the end of the job to where I can get it done in little short spurts throughout the job.
Right.
And B, at the end when we show up, and you say as the client, hey, this trim I want repainted. And I say, well, remember when we invoiced it? And I said, look at the trim. I'm 100% done. What do you think? You said it looked good and paid me for the trim. Right. Well, I didn't know that. Well, we talked about that in the client engagement. I'll touch this, but remember, we talked about this, and this is why we did it that way.
Yeah. Well, and through the duration of the job, by doing that and allowing them to raise their hand and setting the precedence that when I send you an invoice, I'm expecting you to inspect what I'm asking you to pay for.
Yep.
It gives the client a sense of control through the job.
Yeah.
When you're saying, I need to be in the driver's seat because that's how this is going to work well, but I want you in the passenger seat because that's going to help us navigate through this and everybody be happy at the end of it. And giving that client the ability to raise their hand and say, hey, can you touch up these couple of places, gives them that sense of control while you're maintaining the control of the entire job, but they don't feel out of control, which is a place where you can get derailed really quickly.
Here's one of the biggest issues that I see with new project managers, new contractors, guys that are only been doing it for a couple of years is instead of doing it the way that we're talking about, they try to hide the issues, right? Hopefully they won't make me repaint that. Hopefully they won't do that. And the problem with that is maybe you get away with it.
Yep.
Maybe you get away with that one and it saved you 30 minutes of extra paint. Maybe you get away with it. But in reality, it looks to the client that you're hiding it. It looks like you're trying to get away without doing it. It looks like that's what your final work is. That looks sloppy.
Yeah.
And then you still have to do it all at the end.
And if and when you get caught, your expense to repair is way higher.
Way more. So it's one of those things of, well, if I check in every week and they're making a punch list every single week of what I think is done,
I'm going to be going backwards.
I'm going to go, it's going to take me forever. No. They still want that stuff done. They're just saving it on their list for the end. And so they get to the end and they've got a 48-point list of things that they're not happy with. Yeah. And you're like, you're crazy. That was 3 months ago that I finished that part of the project. Why am I going back to it?
And not to mention that your crew, if you can take a punch list of 150 things and spread it out over 30 days or 60 or 90 days, your crew is much more willing to, while they're in the house doing other things, hey, will you touch this thing up for me? Right? If they walk into a house with 150 pieces of tape on the wall, bye.
Done. I'm not, this person's crazy. I'm never going to make them happy.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, let's walk through the first scenario, because with the first scenario, I'm going to tie it into our CEA.
Yeah.
So let's run you as my client through this first scenario. We're sitting in the CEA. We haven't even started the job yet.
Yeah.
And I say to you, Jared, listen, this is how we do this, this, and this. At the end of the CEA, I'm talking about how we exit the job. And I tell you, Jared, listen, this, and I've got it. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see our paperwork. This is our project final walk. This is our final walk paperwork that we have for every single job. And what this spells out to you, Jared, client, is we want to make sure that we exit quickly. We know you don't want us in your house for an extra 2 weeks at the end of this job. So I want to make sure that I get out of your house quickly, get on to the next job, and make you satisfied.
Yeah.
So what we've got is this paperwork. When I think I'm done with the project or a day or two away, I'm going to walk the house with you. And I want to look at everything. You can do this on your own. If it's a small project, we'll send it to the client, let them do their own final walk. but I want to walk through the house. And on the back of this list, I've got 20 different spots. Hopefully we don't use them all. But on here, we're going to write out anything that you think is not done.
Up to your standards or what you would
and
like
I'm
to have
not going to
repaired.
say paint. I'm going to say the back left wall of the living room needs to be touched up on the left side. I'm going to be very specific. And this is my checklist. And so what we're going to do, I'm going to ask you to commit to, client. We're going to fill this out on the second to last or the last day that we think that we're going to be there. And whatever's on this list is what you're going to sign off saying y'all are released from this house.
Right.
So if it's not caught on this, unless it breaks and it's warranty work, we're not coming back for it. This is the most important list.
It's just going to cost you.
Yes, this is you signing off saying, Clark, go ahead and pay your subs.
Right.
And so I don't want to pay them until we both agree that the house is 100%.
Right.
And so by doing this and by releasing me from these things, and we both agree the trim was done well and that paint on the living room was completed, yep, and that door handle was secured, so that's not loose anymore. We go through and check this off, and I'm going to have you initial beside each one of these to say that you agree that those things are done. Once we have this done, that's releasing us for final payment. I need you to give me final payment, and I'm going to pay my crews. Obviously, if we're in there and we put in a new HVAC unit and 3 weeks later the unit breaks or stops working,
It's a different story.
call me. That's that is warranty work. But if you don't like the way paint was cut in, I need that on this list. If you don't like the way the hardwood's laid at the door, I need that on this list because this is releasing my crew. And once I pay them and release them, they have no responsibility to come back.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to come back, but it's going to cost me money.
Yeah.
And so help me save money, help me exit quickly and get out of your hair. And this is the way we do it. And every single time clients look at this and be like,
this is great.
Reasonable.
Yeah.
Great. This is helpful. I know when I'm going to have this list. I know when we're going to do it. I know what you expect from me.
Well, and you don't want to spring this on them at the end of the job if they don't know about it,
Yep.
right? At the front end of the job, you're setting this up. You're setting up two major things. The one that we've already talked about, the invoicing and them able to raise their hand and say, hey, can you touch up a few things?
Yep.
And setting this up. At the end of the job, when we think that we're 100%, we want to make sure that you're super happy, right? But one of the things that I like to talk to the clients about is letting them know that at this stage of the job, it is always a place where it can go derailed. It just is. And what you need to understand is a couple different things. One, this isn't a new build house where we were able to take everything apart and put it all together. This is we're taking what's existing and fixing it and whatever. So there's always going to be minor imperfections, and that you will be able to have a punch list forever.
Yeah.
Because there's always little imperfections and all that. We're going to put together a quality product for you for sure. But if we let this just be a never ending till you find the very last thing, we will be there forever and we'll be in your space forever.
Yeah.
The other side of that on my side, and I hope you can understand this, the more I have to come back, every time I come back, it costs me money. It costs me money. I have to pay my crews to do that. While what you're asking for is reasonable because you found one more little thing, every time I come back, it costs me money. Those two things together cause, at the end of the job, it went great, but the last 10%, all of a sudden we're at odds with each other because there's no boundaries around it. There's no regulation. So what this does is allow us to get to the same page where we can get everything done that you can find, and we can exit the house and we can be done. And you guys can be happy with it and say, you know what, they did a great job. They handled, and you know, you've said this before, when it comes to this list, I tell the client, I want you to be as picky as you can be with this. Find everything that you can find. Now, there are some things that I may come in and say, hey, I'm not going to be able to repair that because if I repair that, I got to repaint the entire blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
There's some things but find everything that you can find. I want you to be picky so that we can make sure that everything gets handled.
And I'm saying that at the CEA meeting in tandem with saying, I want you to be very picky, but I also want you to know if we get to the final walk and there's 100 pieces of tape on the wall, that means we've missed stuff along the way because it wasn't fine yesterday. We did the final coat of paint and now there's 100 issues. Right. It's all the sign-offs from the trim work and other things that we had done previously that you just signed off on when I invoiced it. Right. So I want you to be very picky at the end, but I also want you to know that That needs to be throughout the job. That when I say something's done, I need you to agree that it's done or tell me why you believe it's not.
And helping the client understand, right? The reason why I'm asking you to be picky when I send you an invoice and go look and check is because if you find something at that point, it's way quicker and easier and cheaper for me to fix and make you happy than it is at the end. If you've got a major issue with the sheetrock or the paint or whatever, or the trim, at the time when I send you an invoice, I can go back and fix that super easy because I haven't put your floor in yet.
And I haven't paid the paint crew yet.
That's right. But if I do that at the end, I've already paid the crew for the work that they did. I've already installed your floors that if I get any paint on them, it's going to cause blemishes on your floor, and it's compounding. It's going to cost me so much extra money to come in and tape everything off and and make sure. So that's why if we can do this progressively through the job, it's saving me money and saving us at the end of the job to just be able to get it done.
And saving you headache as a client.
Right. That's right.
So that's the first case scenario because I walk you through the CEA. We talk about this. You understand exactly your role in this renovation as my client.
Right.
We get to the end, and I'm going to lead the final punch walk. I mean, a lot of times we'll send it just to the client to handle it.
Right.
But what I like to do is say, listen, let's meet over there. Let's do a walk. Because then I can set the tone as the industry standard versus needs fixing.
Right.
And so I'll look around and I'm going to find 3 things that I know we got to fix either way.
Right.
Because that shows them, A, I'm an advocate for them. I'm not trying to get away with not paying for stuff, not doing things well. But then I'm also going to look at flaws that are industry standard for a house that's 30 years old. I'm going to be like, that was here, that's kind of industry standard, but this over here needs to be fixed. And so I'm dismissing stuff that they should in their mind be dismissing too.
Right.
And now if they say, well, no, I need that trim fixed. Well, we didn't even touch your trim, man. We just did painting.
Yeah.
And there's a gap there because your house is old and there, the wall's separating right there. I can fix that. I got to bring my carpenter out to redo that trim there. It's going to be some extra money. We can do that, but that wasn't part of the quote.
Right.
And that's where we can start setting those expectations before they assume that I'm fixing that.
Right.
So I'm walking through, dismissing some things, pointing out things that are important, asking their opinion on stuff. And
I think that's one thing you said there that's really important is don't walk around and just let them and deny the things they're saying and just let them point stuff out and say, no, we're not. No, because of that. Yep. Find stuff yourself to say, you know what, I'm not happy with this. I'm going to get guys to fix that. Yep. Lead that part too. Don't just let your clients say what they want done and you just sit there and say, no, we're not doing that. Find stuff yourself.
Our 3 core values are communicate, advocate, and lead.
Yeah.
So I've communicated what I'm expecting. I'm leading in what we're doing and finding the flaws, and I'm advocating for the client. So I'm saying, hey, if this was my house, I'm not happy with that, so I'm going to make sure that gets fixed for you.
That's right.
And so it's me and you, and you're helping me manage this crew over here, right? And so I'm in charge of this crew. Me and you are on a team, and we're getting them to get this done well. And as opposed to a battle here where it's like me versus you. Well, I don't want to do that for you.
Me and my crew that are a team that are trying to extract money from you.
Yeah, I'm trying to do the least amount possible here. I'm trying to get out of here and get as much money out of you as possible.
Yeah.
And so we're changing that narrative from the beginning all the way through the end. And at the end of the job, it's, Jared, let's figure this out. So that wasn't on the quote, but what we could do is what if I threw a bead of caulk in that and try to touch it up? I can do that for you, right? And so I'm advocating, helping, fixing stuff that I know that is our fault, but also leading them away from the stuff that's more industry standard. All we did was paint these rooms and we didn't really touch that trim. And so that's not part of this, as opposed to getting defensive and anger, but it's more me and you versus them. Like, they're not going to fix that without paying them more money.
Right.
I can't get them to fix the trim. They didn't install the trim, and that was pre-existing for us. So I don't know how we pay for that. Well, can you just do it? If you want to pay for it, but I can't pay them to do it. I don't have the money to. I never quoted you for that.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's a us problem, not a me problem. And so that's kind of the walkthrough when everything goes well. Next, when things were rocky, right?
Yeah.
And so this client, I've broken their trust in their mind. And so most of the time, guys are like, no, they're happy with me. They're not happy. They went crazy for the last 10% of the job. No, they didn't go crazy at the last 10%. They've just held their tongue all the way through the job. Well, he didn't do that. Maybe he'll get to it. No, maybe he'll get to it. Okay, well, that's great. They didn't show up at 9.
Little small areas of, in your client's mind, a breach of trust.
Yes. And so throughout the job, that's going to happen. And so I like to check in with my clients. I like to check in like, hey, how's the renovation going for you? We're halfway through. Give me some feedback on what I can do better.
Yeah. Not, do you like the paint? Do you like the trim? That's a conversation differently when you're walking the house. This is a check-in, pulse check-in.
And
where are you at?
I'm doing that throughout the job. It's giving them those areas of pressure release. It's letting them say, you know what, I don't love that, you're kind of gone for a week at a time and I don't really hear from you. Okay, well, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's set those expectations differently, as opposed to 6 months down the road where they're really pissed off because they're still not getting that from you. So checking in to allow that pressure release. And then towards the end, they're not happy. I can tell there's some tension here. I'm going to sit down with them and say, okay, listen, I know that it feels like you're upset with me. Let's talk through. And there's so many scenarios, it's hard to kind of plot this one out. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to our CEA and our paperwork. I'm going to sit down with them and say, listen, this is what we have agreed to. This is what's on your quote. And I know you want this, and this fixed. I can't do all of that because you didn't pay us for that.
Right.
Well, and so that's where it gets into, hey, this tile is 1/60th of an inch off from the tile beside it, right? Yeah. And they start getting nitpicky about tile. I want you to rip the whole floor out because there's this one. And so that's where we start talking through industry standards and say, let's bring in someone else. Now, most of the time, a client's going to bring in someone else that's trying to get the job. So if the client's leading, they're going to go call a plumber or they're going to call a tile installer and say,
brother-in-law who's a GC.
Yeah, I'd rip this floor out. I'd replace it. This is horrible. And so what I want to do is control that narrative. And so I'm going to bring in my own specialist. I'm going to call a tile guy. I'm going to call one of my flooring installers. I'm going to call someone else, a third party, and say, listen, come talk to them about industry standard. Talk to them about this. Let's look at this. If there's something wrong, we're going to get it fixed for you. But that's industry standard. That's how the tile is supposed to be laid. We're dealing with a floor that's not level because this house was built in the 40s, right? There's all sorts of stuff like that we're going to talk through reasonably with the client. And then we're going to get to a spot where we can negotiate to make sure that they're happy, but also I'm not doing everything on their checklist because some of this stuff isn't reasonable.
Right.
And so we're going to have that conversation and try to get to a spot. Two things with that. And this kind of is where this middle spot is where you end up going to a happy ending or a walkaway ending, right? And so we talked about 3 different endings, but this middle one is kind of deciding which direction we end up going. And so if I'm going to, I know for a fact, there's 2 ways that this conversation can go, and there's 2 ways this job can go. And I'm going to sit down with the client. I'm going to pull my guys from the job site and say, listen, I want to make sure that we are efficient with our time and your time. We're gonna get together a list and make sure that we agree on what needs to be done here, and then I'm gonna bring my guys back out. And I know you guys have heard this before. Well, just get them out there, get them to do the work, and then we'll figure it out.
Right.
No. I'm not spending my money until we have a finish line because you're going to move the goalposts on me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that to the client, but what I'm going to say is, listen, I can't tell them exactly what they need to do unless we have an agreed upon list of what they need to do.
Right.
And so let's sit down, let's walk the job, let's figure out, let's come to an agreement of what needs to get done, and then I will execute it as quickly as possible with the crew. And so I'm not going to spend any more dollars when there's a chance of this going sideways on the job until we both see eye to eye on what the finish line looks like.
Yeah.
So we're going to sit down, talk through that, and if it goes well and we come to an agreement, you might say, okay, I disagree, Clark, but I get it. It's not on there, or I don't get it, but I'm fine because I'm just ready to be done with this. However that ends, I've got my paperwork, I've got the list, and I've got their signature at the bottom saying once these things are done, we're done.
Right.
I can do them. I can take pictures. The issue with this and what I've seen before on these sort of things is, hey, I need the maybe it's the window trim on the second story needs to be touched. Great. We go out and do that, and then all of a sudden they're like, hey, your ladder dented my downspout.
Right.
Okay, so there's going to be stuff like that comes up.
Right.
But for the most part, this is all I'm doing.
Yeah.
Right. Unless there's additional damage, this is all I'm doing. You signed off on it. We're in agreement. And I can use this in court to get the money out of you pretty easily.
Right.
So, again, once someone signs one of these and agrees to the final scope, it's usually smooth sailing as long as we can hit the final punch list.
Yeah.
So that's how we deal with the middle.
One of the things that I'd like to say about this spot is this is a place where us as contractors label our clients as nuts, unreasonable. They're just trying to get stuff for free. They don't know what they're talking about, blah, blah, blah. And there's two different stances, and there's one that you really need to practice and work to get to the place of finding this perspective of being an advocate, right? I'm going to be an advocate for what's best for my client. Now, at the end of the day, that being an advocate is really advocating for being able to exit the job. Because you and I both know that if I don't, this thing can go awry, and it's back and forth and back and forth. And every day they're like, hey, I know that you came out and it was the last time, but you guys screwed this up. I need this. I found this. And it's just constant agitation. And we will label them as, oh, God, a nut, right? And that stance and having that belief system about the client means that that's also the demeanor of how I'm treating them. And it's a compounding issue. If when they come to me, I treat them like a nut, and the way that my agitation comes out towards them, all it's doing is making them feel like, okay, this guy is trying to screw me. So I have to double down to make sure that I, as the client, don't get screwed.
It's like any relationship.
100%. Yeah. You know,
the worse I feel you're treating me, the worse you're going to treat me. And the worse you feel like I'm treating you, the worse you're going to treat me. So it's this downward spiral in any relationship, but especially when you're dealing with something like a renovation or a build or an addition on the property, and it's so important and such a integral part of their life. It's so much more heightened with those emotions.
Well, I think, you know, the test for yourself is that if you find yourself saying, they're not going to treat me like this. I'm not going to let them take advantage of me. If you find yourself saying that a lot on your jobs, the reality is that crazy clients, the real nuts, is probably 5% or less. But if you've got 20, 30%, you know, 2 to 3 out of 10 jobs that are, this guy's crazy, I can't exit, I'm constantly having these issues, that's a you problem more than it is your client. You did a poor job of setting the clear expectations. You did a poor job of advocating for them, and it led them to the place where they felt like they can't trust you. And so their actions are working to protect themselves, which comes across to you as they're trying to take advantage of you and get stuff for free, and they're just nuts.
When you call someone crazy, a client crazy, it's because they had an expectation that you feel is unreasonable. And your entire job as the project manager of that job is to set their expectations. So if they have a bad expectation, if they expected you to be here starting from midnight until 11 p.m. and work all day every day, that's on you for not setting our time and our hours that we're going to be there. If they expect you when you quoted a new deck that you're going to reside their house, that's on you for saying this is what our scope is and this is what's defined in my scope and this is all we're doing. And so if you are having people that are upset with you, if you have unhappy clients, look at yourself, because they're only unhappy because they're not getting what they want. Like Jared said, 5% or less are the crazies. I mean, we've had investors that just try to rip us off. I feel like it's always investors. I don't know why, but homeowners rarely get this way. But with that being said, there are times that happens, and that's the third case scenario that that we'll talk about next, where you walk away. But for the most part, if you're calling someone crazy, you stop and you say, okay, obviously they expect something that I did not promise them. That's what I need to clarify. That's my job.
I had a guy last week, one of the guys that I coach, he sent me a stream of text messages, and in the text message, he literally called the client a bipolar schizophrenic. He's like, you're a bipolar schizophrenic, blah, 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 blah. And then he came to me asking me to get on his side of why this person's nuts. And I said, bro, you didn't set yourself up for success, man. You let your mouth run in front of your brain. You know, like why did you feel good about yourself being able to cut? Did it feel good? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, so now where are you at? Well, we're going to court. Okay.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Yeah, you're going to lose more than you would have.
Yeah.
So that's scenario 2. You're trying to figure out which way to go. We're going to sit down. We're going to have a conversation either on site without the crew there or off site. I don't want it to be busy. I don't want to be hectic. I don't want to be arguing with you. It is how are we as a team going to end this job well?
It's even though it's been rocky, finding as the client and the contractor, a common ground agreement of, I know things have been rocky, blah, blah, blah. If we do these things, is it okay for you to sign on the dotted line that we're done? And we'll get out of your space. You'll pay the final check, all this stuff. That common ground of agreement together. Yes, I will do that. Right. The next stage is when that's not possible.
Now, when that's not possible, when they get to a spot where they're like, that's not okay, that's not reasonable, that's not what I'm going to do, I'm not okay, I'm not going to sign on anything, I'm not going to, all that stuff, say, okay, we're going to pause, we're going to back up, we're going to step off this job site, we're going to recalibrate what needs to happen. We had one job that we talked, I actually looked up the paperwork that we found before this podcast, and it was a client that we had go back. We had this checklist. We did the stuff on the checklist. We showed back up, and there had to be 200 pieces of blue tape in the house after we finished. Right. After this, and they were still holding the check. And at that point, we were like, okay, this person's never going to pay us. Right. And even if they aren't trying to rip us off, let's assume that they literally didn't see all 200 issues until we finished all the stuff, and maybe his wife was traveling and came home and was upset.
If we completed those 200, there'd be another 100.
There's another 100, exactly. So it's one of those things of, this is a lose-lose scenario. This is a lose-lose situation. There's nothing I can do to make them happy except that they want me to keep coming back out, and I'm not okay with that. Right. And so what we do in those scenarios...
They want me to keep coming back out for free.
For free. Yeah. Well, to finish what they already paid me for, what I'm asking for. Right. And so in those scenarios, again, all of these scenarios, I am an advocate for you as the client. I am not a justice warrior. I don't care about you getting what you deserve, which is where a lot of contractors get stuck. But I'm saying,
you're not going to like that, but listen to that. That's important.
Yes, I'm not a justice warrior. That's that is something where guys get stuck and get in fights and stick their heels in the sand and say, I'm not moving at all. But what I care about is, I just want to get out of here with enough reputation and get paid as much as as they're supposed to pay me. And so I sit down with them and say, listen, I know that you think this needs to be done, and I do not agree with you that that's part of our contract. We know that we are on two opposite sides of that. And so I can't do that for you. I don't have the money. The guys aren't getting paid for that. I can't do that because that wasn't part of our agreement. You truly believe we should do that. So we're at an impasse over this issue. So what should we do about it? Because it's either we walk away and we go to court and neither one of us want to do that, or we have some sort of a compromise where we meet in the middle. Yeah. So are you willing to compromise with me and meet in the middle? Or are you firm belief of you're either doing this or you're not getting paid?
You're coming over to my side or we're doing nothing.
Yeah, and I asked them that. I have no problem saying, like, where are you with flexibility on this? Because we don't see eye to eye on this. And so I care more about you being happy than being right in this situation. But at the same time, I can't come out of pocket to pay for something that I'm not getting paid to do. Like, this wasn't part of our agreement. And so then they're like, well, it was part because you said this. And it's like, oh, listen, we're not going to rehash if this was part of what we're supposed to do. Right. We are on two opposite sides of this conversation, and it doesn't help us to rehash this.
Right now there's a gap of understanding, and we're not bridging that.
I know the crew that you talked to said that they'd do this, and this person said that this, and your cousin who's a tile installer came and said it didn't look good. I know all of that. Right. We disagree on how this is going to finish. And so we can either figure out how to get out of this together, or we can walk away and we can do this through the legal system, and neither one of us want to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't sue clients. And so it's a trying to build.
Still advocating.
Yeah, and a lot of guys say, I don't want to do that. Screw that guy. Great. You're never going to make money or grow your company with that attitude. Yeah. If you're trying to stick it to every single person, you're going to ruin your reputation.
If you have a track record of going to court with clients, you're not going to work out real well.
I don't care about being your dad and teaching you how to have manners. Right. I care about getting out of this job without you writing a bad Google review and with my check in hand. That's all I care about. I don't care about teaching you a lesson. And so with that mindset, it's how are we going to exit this? Because I know neither one of us want to do that. And so at that point, that's where we start negotiating. That's there's 200 things on the paint. Our paint line item was only $3,000, and we painted your whole house and your issues in these 2 rooms.
Right.
So I'll tell you what, I am going to give you a $300 discount. That's 15% of this of the paint line item, and I'm not going to charge you for that if you're okay with the way this is. Well, I'm okay with everything except for that corner. The cut in on that corner looks horrible. All right, so if we recut that corner and give you $300 off,
you're good.
Or can we agree that we can walk away satisfied at that point? And if it's a yes, I'm going to get it in writing.
Yeah.
And then I'm also going to create a lien release. And so that's saying, listen, I'm going to protect you with the lien release. This is saying that once I get this, I've paid all my guys and I've created, we can't put a lien on your property. Inside of our lien release, listen to this. This is important. Inside of our lien release, we have a sentence that I walk them through that says neither party will, neither party will have defamatory speech,
defamation of character,
and blah, 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 publicly or privately, blah, 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 where we sign off and agree that I'm not going to talk about you negatively and you can't talk about me negatively. Right. Now, that's one line in there. And so that's buried middle of the paragraph. I hope none of our clients are watching that are going to use this against us in the future. But it's in there saying, listen, I'm willing to give you a discount to walk away from this, but I'm not going to give you a discount and get hung out to dry online. Yeah. I'm not going to do both those
And with
things.
signatures on that paperwork, you could actually go to court and they would be required to remove a negative review or whatever.
And it's never gotten there.
Right.
I think we've used this paper 3 or 4 times in 17 years. But again, it's like, here's a lien release saying, when we finish these things, you're going to pay me this amount of money. I'm giving you a $300 discount. And once you pay me that, we're 100% released and cannot sue you for any additional money, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And so I'll walk them through and say, it says this and this. Again, we're agreeing that we're going to end this peacefully. So there's no defamation, no negativity online. And when I've had people say, I don't want to sign with that line. And I say, well, I don't want to give you a discount.
Right.
But I'm doing that to make you happy. And if it doesn't make you happy, I don't want to give it to you. I want all my money.
Right.
Right. And does that make sense to you? And so kind of having that conversation about it, like I'm willing to give you a discount to save my reputation because we disagree with something.
Right.
But I'm not willing to give you a discount and ruin my reputation. Right. So you can ruin my reputation, but I'm going to collect all my money. But I'd rather pay you. I'd rather say, listen, what's going to make you happy to give me the reputation that I want? And hopefully giving you this discount is going to say, okay, great. ProServe, they did it well. They did it right. Even though we disagree, we ended well. Yeah. Right. And so that's always the end goal. Obviously, there's ways that it goes sideways and we go through arbitration and that sort of thing. We've still never yet sued a client. But
that conversation is not possible.
Correct.
If you have the mindset of the justice warrior and you're not advocating for clean exit. Yeah. Right. Or not even a clean exit, advocating for just exit. Yeah. Right. If I'm trying to have this conversation and I'm coming at it as they're never going to listen, they're just going to be a jerk, they're insane, they have no idea what they're talking about, and I treat them that way in this conversation, I promise you it will not go well. You have to be able to have the de-escalated perspective of I need to advocate for myself and the client for an exit.
And you're not doing the client a favor. Don't think you're think about it like you're a lawyer. A prosecutor who's prosecuting a murderer isn't all emotional and he can't do that and you guys should put him in there, right? And it's not that. That's not how you win your case. Right. You win your case with reason, calm. What about this? But we also said this, and tell me more about this because I don't see it on our quote. Tell me more about that. And it's this curiosity that leads them to a reasonable spot, right? And so play chess, not checkers. Think through, I can explode on this person emotionally. I'll feel good for the moment, but I'm not getting paid. They're writing me a 0-star review, and we're going to go to court over the next 8 months to try and get $3,000 as a final payment out of them, which is never going to be worth the money. Right. So play the chess game. Say, okay, listen, let me turn on a fake smile and say, I want you to be happy at the end of this, and let's exit well. And how do we do this? and you're going to be in a better place no matter what at the end, even if you're going to arbitration or a lawsuit, because this is how I approached it. This is what I tried. I sat down. I reasonably offered this stuff. I tried to do this. I disagree with this. And that's where you can make your case and show how good of a person you were up to that point.
Yeah. What is it that you say about leadership being the lowest heartbeat, the calmest heartbeat in the room?
Yep.
That applies in this scenario too. It doesn't matter how agitated you are.
Yep.
You need to be in this and be the lowest heart. They can scream and holler and whatever. Do not try and one up them or match their level.
Yeah.
Stay even, stay calm. Your goal is exit.
Yeah.
Right? Your goal is not, well, you can't treat me, you can't scream at me, you can't. That's not the goal.
Yep.
The goal is exit.
So that is the way we deal with these situations. If you want this final walk checklist, hit us up. We've got this as part of our paperwork package for Alliance members. It's one of the many things that we give you as an Alliance member and walk you through how and when to use this stuff. We roll it out throughout the relationship, so we kind of give you the most important papers up front,
right?
And kind of this is the different processes as we grow your company and help you with advisory role and help you guide.
Yeah, as a one-man show working to start, growing.
Yep.
You don't need all the HR documents and how to hire, who to hire, when to hire, job. You don't need that stuff yet, but you need a CEA and a subcontract. So we start with those. Yeah.
And the cool part about all of this too is that it's built around our systems and processes, which is ProServe 360, our software.
Yeah.
Our software runs your company in a systematic way to where if you were just running your jobs in our software, you already have a lot of these systems built into what you're doing. So that's check out ProServe360.com. It's the software that you can sign up for. We've got all different levels, free all the way up through $500 a month for the software, and then we also got the coaching and alliance side of things. If you want additional support,
lots of options that are available to you.
Our goal is to build whatever you need around you, an a la carte menu to where let's talk with you, let's figure out what your company needs. And try to get you the best bang for your buck in terms of the support and paperwork and software and all that stuff that you need. So go to our website, ProServeAlliance.com, ProServe360.com. Please email Jared or myself, Clark at ProServe360.com or Jared, Jared, at ProServe360.com.
Yep.
We love to talk with you guys, chat with you. Appreciate you watching. Talk to you next time.
See you then.
Thank you.